Pet Sematary is a classic horror film from 1989, and it's based off of my favorite book of all time, and it's also responsible for the fact that I can never spell cemetery correctly to this day. The story of Pet Sematary is so good, and Stephen King is a master of depicting grief in the written form, so I've always said that if you put a movie adaptation of Pet Sematary in the right hands, it would win every award known to man. So far, we have not gotten that. And I'm not saying that Pet Sematary is bad.
My little girl's got a cat. Winston Churchill. Call him Church for short.
The acting definitely holds it back. The movie takes place in Ludlow, Maine, and we meet the Creed family who's moving into their new home. The Creeds are comprised of Father Lewis, Mother Rachel, daughter Ellie, and Gage. I don't want to spoil anything, but just don't get too attached to this kid. The Creeds are visited by their next-door neighbor, the kindly old Judd Crandall, played by Fred Gwynne, who most of you know as either Herman Munster or the judge from My Cousin Vinny.
I live just across the road. You want to watch out for that road.
That road leads to a dark and mysterious land where people go missing and no one ever hears from them again. If I were you, I wouldn't go down that road.
And the Creeds also have their cat Church, who in this version is a British Shorthair. And yes, he's a very iconic cat, and I know this is sacrilege, but I actually prefer the Church from the 2019 version. And I know I'm weird, but I'd love this Church. I think he looks so awesome and badass, to the point where we got some kind of dwarf version of a Maine Coon, because I love this cat so much, but I did get outvoted when it came to the name, so instead of Church, his name is Benny, and instead of looking badass, he looks incredibly badass. Look at that sweet little badass face. That night, Lewis notices Judd sitting on his porch, and Judd asks him to join him for a beer, and they begin a nightly ritual where they talk about Judd's favorite subject.
That's one mean road, all right. You know that path your wife commented on? That road. And those Orinco trucks. The two main reasons is that.
And now the book and the movie will make you wish that you had an 80-year-old best friend that you can drink beer with every night. Like, I read this book once a year, and every time I just wish that Stephen King would write an alternate version where nothing bad happens, and it's just Judd and Lewis hanging out and being bros. And Judd tells Lewis that the path behind Lewis's house leads to the pet cemetery, where the local children have been burying their pets for decades. Of course, if I was Lewis, I'd be like, oh, hell no. I'm not having kids walking through my yard to bury their pets. But also, I talk a mean game about wanting an old neighbor as a best friend, but if I was Lewis and I saw my neighbor sitting out on his front porch, I would just make a point to not go outside. That's why I hate living in a neighborhood. Like, if I have to get the mail and my neighbor's out front tending to their flowers or something, then I have to just wait till dark to go get my mail. It sucks. So they get to the pet cemetery and Judd just strikes out all over the place.
A graveyard for pets killed in the road, built by broken-hearted children.
Well, they have to learn about death somehow, now don't they, Mrs. Creed?
Why?
Yikes. Okay, maybe try to reassure Ellie.
Do you know what a graveyard really is? A place where the dead speak. No! Not right out loud.
The dead can sometimes invade your thoughts and recount unspeakable horrors until your brain turns to mush. I'm rambling. Have I told you about the road yet? Lewis heads off for his first day of work as the doctor for the local university, and a jogger named Victor Pascow gets hit by a truck and brought to Lewis's office. Pascow dies on the table, but he visits Lewis that night and leads him to the pet cemetery and warns him not to go further on past the deadfall into the woods, which I'm sure Lewis had zero intention of before you warn him against it. It's basically the Streisand effect in action. The months pass and Thanksgiving rolls around, and Lewis sends his family to his wife's parents' house for the week, while Lewis stays behind because he hates Rachel's parents. The next day, Lewis and Judd find Church dead on the side of the road, and Judd tells Lewis to follow him with a cat, and he takes Lewis beyond the deadfall deep into the woods.
Judd, what's that?
They hike pretty far in, they hear loud crashing and a creature making an eerie noise, which is supposed to be the mythical Wendigo, but studio interference caused all scenes of the Wendigo to be cut, because if there's one thing movie executives know, it's how to dispose of the body of a dead hooker. Wait, what was I talking about? They finally make it to the ancient burial ground of the Micmac tribe, and Judd tells Lewis to bury Church there. They head home, and the next day Church comes back, but he's a real dick, and he smells like shit. Lewis goes to talk to Judd, and Judd tells Lewis about the time when his dog died, and he buried him at the Micmac site, and his dog came back mean, and he had to put him down for a second time.
Has anyone ever buried a person up there?
I'm sorry. I'm steaming piss drunk. I get that way, talking about pet cemeteries and roads and such. Lewis's family makes it back home, and Ellie complains immediately about how bad Church smells.
Church smells bad.
Oh, why, you ungrateful brat, if you only knew what your dad did for you. And the Creed's housekeeper, Missy, is in such chronic pain that she takes her own life, and the priest at the funeral is played by none other than the author of Pet Sematary, Stephen King. Stephen was invited to the set the first day as a courtesy, but just kept showing up every day, being more and more disruptive. In fact, Emilio Estevez had been cast to play the priest as a kind of a fun little cameo, and Stephen King lost his damn mind. And my producer uncovered audio from the set the day they filmed this scene. Okay, Emilio, so now you're Father McMillan, and now what you're gonna do is we just want you to recite a prayer.
Is that little Emilio Estevez?
And then,
As I live and breathe,
dismiss everyone.
the prodigal son returns.
Yeah.
Hey,
okay.
are you too good
Yeah,
to
that
come over and
sounds-
say hi to your pal Steve?
Sounds great. Oh,
Hey, buddy.
Hi, Steve. How are you? Oh, he wants to know how I am. Well, Emilio Estevez, or should I say Emilio Sheen? Did you ever figure that one out? Look, Steve, you know I go by Estevez. I'm just yanking your nuts. But look, you greasy taint, the role of Father McMillan was promised to me, so I'm gonna need you to skedaddle. Well, look, Steve, I don't know anything about that. My agent just said that they offered me the role. Oh, really? They called up Emilio Sheen and offered him the role? Look, for the last time, it's Emilio Estevez. You know it's not Emilio Sheen. Oh, he says it's Emilio Estevez and not Emilio Sheen. Oh, okay. Well, just so you know, I'm gonna Emilio eviscerate you, and your blood will give the entire set a nice sheen, you son of a bitch! Stephen, you jerky. And Rachel is taking Missy's death very hard, because she's been afraid of death ever since her sister Zelda died of spinal meningitis when Rachel was a little girl. And the night that Zelda died, Rachel's parents left her alone to take care of Zelda, and, holy hell. And Rachel has felt guilty ever since, because she was relieved that her sister was finally dead. And as if seeing Zelda for the first time wasn't bad enough, we then get to the day. You know what day I'm talking about? We don't need to dwell on it too much. There's Gage and a speeding truck, and you're all caught up, so let's just move on. And I think I've said it before, but Miko Hughes was in everything for what seemed like 20 years when I was growing up, but I don't think I've ever seen him past the age of like 6. I think if I saw him as an adult, I would go, just because I wouldn't be expecting it. Judd comes over and tells Lewis that he knows Lewis is thinking of taking Gage to the Micmac burial site, and he tells Lewis the story of the last time someone buried a person up there, and this story is the basis for Pet Sematary Bloodlines. And so during World War II, a soldier from Ludlow named Timmy Baderman died in combat, and his father Bill was so overcome with grief that he buried his son at the burial ground, but Timmy came back weird and evil, and the townsfolk burned the Baderman house, killing Timmy and Bill. So Lewis sends his wife and daughter to Chicago with Rachel's parents, and Lewis goes to dig up Gage.
It's going to be all right. I swear it's going to be all right.
Because his left arm was ripped off? I'm sorry, I'm trying to just find some levity. Such a sad freaking movie. Pascal visits Ellie in a dream and tells her that her dad is going to do something bad, and when she tells her mom, Rachel believes her and immediately books a flight home. And Judd is determined to stop Lewis, and so he sets up on his porch so he can see Lewis when he gets home, and he's equipped with the #1 aid to stay awake: 6 beers. And Rachel falls asleep on the plane and has a nightmare about Zelda, and now, just prepare yourself. Yeah, okay, you can't prepare yourself.
I'm coming for you, Rachel.
Holy shit, she's terrifying.
And this time, I'll get you.
Okay, just pretend Zelda cannot hurt you.
Gage, and I will get you.
Nope. So Lewis buries Gage and goes back home and passes out. And Gage makes it back while everyone's sleeping and steals a scalpel from Lewis's bag and goes over to Judd's house and begins taunting him. I mean, that's unsettling and all, but we've seen Zelda, so you have to get a lot creepier than that. But Judd knows how best to handle a toddler who's a little out of sorts. Every baby instinctively fears and respects the blade. And Church distracts Judd while Gage severs his Achilles tendon and rips out his throat. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. I want a behind-the-scenes documentary about child actors in horror movies. Like, I just want to see things from the child's perspective and what they're told is going on. Like, what direction was Miko Hughes given? Rachel makes it home and hears Gage laughing from Judd's house, and she goes inside. Nope, don't do that. We, the audience, don't need or want to see what's behind that door.
I finally came back for you, Rachel. I'm going to twist your back like mine, so you'll never get out of bed again. Never get out of bed again. Never get out of bed again!
Yeah. You know what? I've got to look up who the hell played Zelda so I know to avoid her in real life. And what the Zelda's played by a guy? That's like 1,000 times scarier. So not only is Zelda frightening beyond all belief, but now I know that she probably has the upper body strength to administer a pretty devastating pile driver.
I bought you something, Mommy. I bought you something, Mommy.
Lewis gets a call from Gage saying he wants to play.
First I played with Dad, then Mommy came, and I played with Mommy. Now I want to play with you.
Well, that's nice. More kids need to call their parents. Lewis then kills Church and goes to find Gage. He finds Judd's mutilated body and finds Rachel hung from a noose, and Gage lunges at him like a spider monkey and begins stabbing Lewis with a scalpel until Lewis chucks him across the room. Now, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and it really looks as though Lewis is no longer sad about the death of his son. Like right now, he'd definitely prefer that Gage just be dead. So, that's kind of a good thing. He just steamrolled right through the grieving process. Lewis then injects the poison into Gage's neck. And, okay, let's not go nuts here. Miko is fine. Everything is fine. He wasn't hurt. I'm sure everyone on this production took every precaution to make sure that no harm came to this child. Okay, besides that, Lewis then sets Judd's house on fire and takes Rachel to be buried at the burial site.
I waited too long with Gage. But Rachel, it will work this time because she just died.
And Lewis thinks it'll work this time because Rachel just died, so she's still fresh? That's not the word I'm looking for. So Lewis buries Rachel and goes home to wait, and the next morning Rachel shows back up, and in the book, it just ends with her walking in the house, but it's still kind of a subtle, ambiguous ending. And the movie version has Lewis sucking on the eye hole juice as he makes out with his dead wife, and then she stabs him.